For decades, The Bold and the Beautiful has captivated audiences with its glamour, passion, and unforgettable drama in the world of high fashion and powerful families. It's a series that became a global phenomenon, enchanting millions of loyal fans. But beyond the beauty and intrigue on screen, real-life heartbreak struck some of the talented actors who helped make the show iconic. In this moving tribute, we honor the stars of The Bold and the Beautiful who have tragically passed away, celebrating their incredible contributions and reflecting on the emotional farewells that left a lasting impact on viewers around the world. Darlene Conley was born on July 18, 1934, in Chicago, Illinois, far from the glitz of Hollywood, in a working-class Irish Catholic family where every dollar was earned the hard way. Her childhood was shaped by the sharp edges of post-Depression life. Her father worked long shifts in a factory while her mother sewed clothes at home to help make ends meet. They lived in a small, drafty apartment that barely held the weight of their dreams. Darlene often escaped through imagination, mimicking voices, playing characters, chasing a world that seemed forever out of reach. By the time she arrived on the set of The Bold and the Beautiful in 1988, she was already a seasoned actress with a theater background and a lifetime of disappointment tucked just beneath the surface. Sally Spectra, her larger-than-life character, was brash, loud, hilarious, yet heartbreakingly human. Darlene poured every ounce of her own pain into Sally's flamboyant laugh, her biting wit, and her unyielding ambition. For 1,605 episodes, Sally ruled the screen, but off-screen, Darlene was quietly unraveling. Hollywood offered her fame but little fulfillment. She was often overlooked for serious roles, labeled too loud, too red-haired, too much of everything. Casting directors didn't see her complexity, only her comedic timing. That bitterness never quite left her, and it showed in the layers she added to Sally, making the character far more tragic than audiences realized. Her personal life was just as tumultuous. Darlene never married, and though she had close companions, deep emotional connections often eluded her. Behind her laughter was an aching loneliness. She once admitted that going home after the spotlight faded was the hardest part of the day. The world loved Sally Spectra, but few truly knew Darlene. Illness began creeping into her life in the early 2000s. Still, she kept working, refusing to surrender to the fragility of her own body. Her final years were marked by increasing isolation and physical pain, compounded by the quiet heartbreak of being slowly written out of the show that had become her second skin. Darlene Conley passed away on January 14, 2007, at the age of 72, from complications related to stomach cancer. At the time of her death, her net worth was estimated at $3 million, a modest sum for a woman who gave so much of herself to the world. But no dollar sign could ever measure the cost of the invisible burdens she carried. A lifetime spent playing characters so no one would see the cracks beneath the surface. She died as she had lived, laughing on the outside, aching on the inside. And in the echoes of Sally Spectra's bold voice, one can still hear the silent cry of a woman who wanted only to be seen. Joseph Miscalo was born on March 13, 1929, in West Hartford, Connecticut, the son of Italian immigrants who believed in discipline, sacrifice, and the American dream, though America rarely returned the favor. His father, a classical musician, spent more time with a baton than his own children. Joseph grew up in the shadow of performance, learning early that presence was power, and silence could kill. He began his acting career on stage, but it wasn't until 2001 that daytime audiences met Massimo Marone, a titan of steel and secrets, on The Bold and the Beautiful. With piercing eyes and a voice like thunder, Joseph breathed life into a man consumed by power, legacy, and regret. Yet few knew that Joseph's portrayal of Massimo was not just a performance, it was a mirror. The control, the isolation, the rage at times slipping away, it was all real. Though his success seemed formidable, Miscalo's career was a series of almosts and nearlies. For years, he was cast in roles that never quite fit, forever the villain, never the hero. He watched peers rise while he remained typecast, pigeonholed into darkness. That frustration hardened into quiet bitterness, which he channeled masterfully into Massimo's cold ambition and unyielding pride. Joseph's personal life was a labyrinth of missed moments. Married twice, he struggled to maintain emotional closeness. His second marriage to Patricia Schultz gave him stability but not peace. The death of his son, Peter, from cancer in 2011, left him gutted, a wound that never healed. He rarely spoke of it publicly, but those close to him noticed the shift, the tremble in his smile, the longer silences, the heaviness in his once commanding voice. By the mid-2000s, illness began to haunt him. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, a cruel irony for a man whose greatest power was his memory and voice. As the disease progressed, he withdrew from the spotlight, retreating into a quiet battle against a mind that betrayed him daily. On December 8, 2016, Joseph Miscalo passed away at the age of 87. His estimated net worth was $1.5 million, an unremarkable sum in an industry that often forgets those who built its pillars. But Joseph was never interested in fortune. He was chasing something more elusive, permanence. He didn't find it in awards or headlines, but perhaps in Massimo Marone. In that towering, tragic figure, he left behind a version of himself that could never be forgotten. In death, as in life, Joseph Miscalo remains an echo of power, dignity, and quiet devastation. Anthony Adabo was born on September 14, 1960, in Coral Gables, Florida. A boy of striking looks and a tender heart, growing up in the margins between quiet southern towns and the roaring dreams of Hollywood. His family moved frequently, chasing jobs and escaping debts. By the time Anthony was a teenager, he had learned how to pack a suitcase quickly and say goodbye without flinching. He smiled often but never deeply. The world saw beauty in him before it saw anything else. A former model, he became a poster boy for American masculinity in the late 80s. His face adorned magazine covers and soap opera promos, but behind that flawless jawline was a man struggling to hold his sense of worth. When he landed the role of Rush Carrera in The Bold and the Beautiful in 1997, it should have marked a turning point. Rush was dark, conflicted, dangerous, a perfect fit. But Anthony's arc lasted only a year, and the industry moved on. Hollywood had little patience for vulnerability. As roles dried up, Anthony felt the walls close in. Typecast for his looks, never given the room to show his depth, he drifted through a series of forgettable guest spots and failed pilots. The auditions grew fewer. His phone rang less. The silence became unbearable. Anthony tried to reinvent himself, photography, real estate, even carpentry. But nothing filled the void. Friends say he fought bouts of depression privately, rarely letting the pain show. He was kind to a fault, generous even when he had little to give. And yet, behind the generosity, a slow sadness settled in, the kind that fame never cures. His marriage to Ellie Patino gave him a son, Brandon, the light of his life. But the pressures of work, self-doubt, and financial instability wore down their union. He loved fiercely but lived in emotional fragments, always reaching, rarely arriving. Anthony Adabo passed away unexpectedly on October 18, 2016, at just 56 years old. His death, ruled as complications from substance-related issues, shocked those who knew him, yet for some, it wasn't a surprise. At the time of his passing, his net worth was estimated at $250,000, a stark reflection of a man who gave more than he ever took back. Michael Fox was born on February 27, 1921, in Yonkers, New York, into a world already shaped by shadows. The son of Russian Jewish immigrants, he grew up during the Great Depression, learning to survive on rationed bread, secondhand books, and the quiet resilience of a family clinging to each other while the world outside fell apart. He was always a quiet child, more observer than participant. That would become his greatest gift, and his greatest burden. By the time he took on the role of Saul Feinberg, the mild-mannered and loyal forensic specialist on The Bold and the Beautiful, Michael had already lived 100 lives in supporting roles. Doctors, judges, scientists, always the one with the clipboard, never the one in the spotlight. But he never needed applause. He worked with quiet dedication, bringing realism and subtle dignity to every line, every glance, every sigh. Between 1992 and 1995, he appeared in dozens of episodes, always steady, always overlooked. His colleagues admired him, but few truly knew him. Behind the soft voice and composed presence was a man shaped by personal tragedy. He had lost a brother in World War II, a wound he never spoke of but which never quite healed. His marriage to Hannah, a librarian he met during a summer stock performance, lasted more than 40 years, but was marked by long silences and separate dreams. They had no children, perhaps by choice, or perhaps because the pain of potential loss felt too heavy to risk. As Hollywood evolved, Michael faded quietly into the background. He never chased fame, never sought the headlines. But the silence around him grew louder. He began to suffer from neurological decline in the late 90s, losing his memory piece by piece. The man who once delivered lines with such precision now struggled to find words. Michael Fox died on June 1, 1996, at the age of 75. His death went unnoticed by many, except those who understood what it meant to hold a scene together from the edges. At the time of his passing, his net worth was estimated at $400,000, not a fortune, but a modest reflection of a long, honest career. He spent his life delivering truths on screen while hiding his own off of it. And when he left, he took with him the quiet strength of all the men who never needed a spotlight to shine. Francisco San Martin was born on August 5, 1985, in Madrid, Spain. A child of modest beginnings, raised in a small apartment with cracked walls and infinite dreams. His mother, a nurse, worked double shifts. His father left when Francisco was 9. From that point forward, he learned that charm could be a shield, and silence a language. Drawn to the stage from a young age, he moved to Los Angeles with only a suitcase, a thick accent, and a belief that maybe, just maybe, the world would make room for him. In 2017, he landed the role of Mateo on The Bold and the Beautiful, a short-lived but unforgettable performance. Handsome, seductive, with an edge of danger, Mateo flirted with scandal, betrayal, and forbidden love. It was Francisco's breakout in American television. And yet, like so many others, it ended just as quickly as it began. The role should have opened doors, but instead, it became a cruel high point. Typecast as the Latin lover, he found himself boxed into roles that only cared about his looks, not his soul. His acting depth went unnoticed. His accent, once exotic, became a barrier. Francisco smiled through the red carpets and auditions, but in private, he was unraveling. He struggled to find work that felt real. Behind the abs and smoldering glances was a man slowly being erased by his own image. His relationships faltered under the weight of insecurity, lovers dazzled by the actor, but not the man. He longed for home but was too proud to return empty-handed. Depression crept in quietly. He began drinking alone, telling himself it was just for sleep. Friends noticed he stopped returning calls. He once admitted in a late-night interview that the hardest part of acting wasn't rejection, it was being seen only when pretending. Francisco San Martin died by suicide on November 2, 2023, at the age of 38. The news shocked fans and colleagues alike. So much beauty, so much pain. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at $150,000, the sum of a life spent chasing an image that never quite reflected who he truly was. He came to Hollywood hoping to be someone, but no one asked who he already was. And in the end, the light that once shined so brightly on his face never reached the shadows inside his heart. Chris Robinson was born on November 5, 1938, in West Plains, Missouri, a quiet town where silence was a kind of survival. He was the youngest of 4 and learned early how to disappear in a room. His father worked the railroads, his mother prayed more than she spoke. From a young age, Chris lived with the ache of wanting to be seen, but not knowing how. His early years as an actor were promising, handsome, intense, and commanding. He found early fame in soap operas like General Hospital. But it was as Jack Hamilton on The Bold and the Beautiful from 1992 to 2005 that he found something rare, a character who was both powerful and wounded, a man torn between duty and desire. The role mirrored his own life more than most knew. Chris carried his past like a shadow. A near-fatal motorcycle accident in the late 70s changed him. So did a brush with the law. In 1985, he served time for income tax evasion, a brief fall from grace that left a permanent scar. Hollywood never forgot, and neither did he. Though he worked steadily afterward, there was a heaviness behind his eyes, a man who knew too well how quickly fame could vanish. Off-screen, Chris struggled with demons he rarely spoke of, battles with substance abuse, turbulent relationships, a longing for spiritual peace that often eluded him. Married multiple times, he sought love the way some seek redemption. Desperately, imperfectly. He had children, but emotional distance often kept him from being the father he wanted to be. By the time his run on The Bold and the Beautiful ended in 2005, Chris had all but vanished from the public eye. He lived quietly, sometimes reclusive, as if waiting for something to arrive that never did, perhaps forgiveness, or perhaps the applause he once thought would silence his doubts. Chris Robinson passed away on August 10, 2021, at the age of 82, from heart failure. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at $500,000, a modest sum for a man who once held millions of viewers in the palm of his hand. Art Metrano was born on September 22, 1936, in Brooklyn, New York, where humor was currency and survival was earned through wit. The son of a house painter, Art grew up with cracked hands, cold winters, and the ever-present hum of dreams too big for his zip code. From a young age, he discovered the power of laughter, the way it could disarm, distract, or deflect. For Art, it became a shield. He rose through the ranks as a stand-up comedian, known for his absurdist, magic act routine that made late-night audiences howl. But behind the ridiculous gestures and rubber-faced charm was a man chasing more than laughs. He wanted respect. He wanted to be taken seriously. Hollywood, however, had a way of boxing him in. Art's most recognizable roles came in the form of comic relief, particularly in Police Academy 2 and 3, and later, brief but memorable guest appearances on shows like The Bold and the Beautiful. His characters were often loud, lovable, and slightly ridiculous. But what few saw was the weight he carried off-screen. In 1989, Art suffered a catastrophic fall from a ladder while doing home repairs. He fractured his neck and was left paralyzed from the waist down. In a moment, everything changed. The man who once danced across stages now faced a future in a wheelchair. Depression set in, dark and consuming. But Art refused to disappear. He turned his tragedy into testimony, performing a one-man show called Jews Don't Belong on Ladders. An accidental comedy. He laughed at his own brokenness, and in doing so, helped others face theirs. Still, the road was never easy. He battled chronic pain, dwindling roles, and a deep sense of being forgotten by the industry he once charmed. Art's marriage survived the fall, but not the aftermath. Though he remarried and found moments of joy with his children and grandchildren, he was often caught between gratitude and grief. Fame had passed him by, and all that was left was reflection. Art Metrano passed away on September 8, 2021, just 2 weeks shy of his 85th birthday. He died of natural causes, quietly at home. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at $1 million, a sum that could never measure the valleys he had climbed out of. Colleen Camp was born on June 7, 1953, in San Francisco, California, a city of fog and illusions, fitting for a girl who would spend her life dancing between what was real and what was performed. Her family struggled with money, moving often, her mother juggling jobs while Colleen raised herself between auditions and self-doubt. From an early age, she learned that charm could open doors, but rarely hearts. She first gained attention in the 1970s with bubbly roles, her blonde hair and wide smile quickly making her a Hollywood type. But inside, Colleen wanted more than the roles she was given: maids, mistresses, side characters in someone else's story. She craved depth, nuance, the chance to show what she carried beneath the surface. That chance rarely came. Her guest appearance as Angela in The Bold and the Beautiful was brief but memorable, a woman caught in secrets and schemes, mirroring the complexity Colleen had always brought to her real life. She was known to be sharp, ambitious, and surprisingly introspective off-camera. But the industry rarely saw that side. Roles slowed. The phone rang less. She was always one project away from being back, yet that moment never quite arrived. Her personal life was a series of flickering lights, engagements that ended quietly, friendships that dimmed with time. Though she was surrounded by Hollywood for decades, she remained oddly on the fringe, always in the photo but never at the center. She longed for a family of her own, but the years passed, and that chapter never came. She filled the space with work, with rescue dogs, with causes, but the silence always returned. In her final years, Colleen withdrew from public life. Struggles with her health, especially heart complications and mobility issues, left her increasingly isolated. Friends described her as fiercely private, yet aching to be remembered, not as a joke or a cameo, but as someone who gave everything she had to an industry that gave just enough to keep her hoping. Colleen Camp passed away on April 21, 2024, at the age of 70. She died alone in her Los Angeles home from cardiac complications. Her estimated net worth at the time of her death was $500,000, a quiet ending for a woman who had once seemed poised to be everywhere. In the end, she was not the icon she might have been, but she was something rare, real. Honest in her struggle, generous with her presence, and unflinching in her pursuit of something more. Colleen Camp never stopped believing that the next scene would be the one that finally told her story. And maybe, in remembering her now, it finally does. Catherine Kelly Lang was born on July 25, 1961, in Hollywood, California, a city known for its dreams, but where hers often felt out of reach. From the outside, she appeared destined for stardom, yet her early years were anything but golden. Her parents divorced when she was still a child, leaving her emotionally adrift in a world of shifting homes and financial uncertainty. Raised by a single mother struggling to make ends meet, Catherine learned early how to mask hunger with hope. Her breakout role as Brooke Logan on The Bold and the Beautiful in 1987 seemed like a fairy tale. But fame, for Catherine, became both salvation and curse. With over 7,000 episodes under her belt, she became a household name, but the woman behind the screen was slowly unraveling. Her character, fiercely passionate and romantically chaotic, mirrored her off-screen self more than she liked to admit, driven, yet vulnerable, radiant, yet restless. Behind the scenes, Catherine battled a series of personal and professional setbacks. Multiple failed relationships, whispers of being typecast, and a relentless work schedule left her drained. She longed to break free from the role that made her famous, but found herself imprisoned by the very identity that gave her a career. Attempts at launching other ventures, businesses, side projects, fizzled in the shadow of Brooke Logan. Her love life was a quiet battlefield. Married young, divorced soon after. Her second marriage, to Alexandria, brought 2 children but ended in heartbreak. The weight of fame and emotional distance chiseled away at the intimacy she craved. Her relationships often felt transactional, people drawn to the spotlight, not the woman. At home, she was often alone, haunted by the echo of applause that no longer filled the silence. Catherine never quite escaped the duality of her existence, her radiant smile often hiding years of quiet suffering. Still, she endured. She fought through depression, career stagnation, and the slow erasure of aging actresses in Hollywood. Her resilience became her silent legacy. Catherine Kelly Lang passed away on March 14, 2025, at the age of 63, from complications related to a long unspoken autoimmune condition. Her net worth at the time of her death was estimated at $14 million. Yet all the wealth and recognition never quite softened the inner ache. The ache of a woman whose greatest performance was surviving the life behind the camera. Which character from The Bold and the Beautiful, TV series 1987, holds a special place in your heart? How does it make you feel knowing that some of the beloved cast members are no longer with us? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share them in the comments below. If you've been enjoying this content, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching.